Been a long time coming. And we are live! Welcome everybody to Mishnah Mastery. It's been so long, but we are back. We are back with a vengeance because tonight we are going to try and crack through three chapters of Mishnah, and in so doing, we will finish Masechet Tamid, which has been all about a day in the life of the Beis Hamikdash. So that's what we are hoping to accomplish today. And I mean, so much has changed, but with the reshus of everyone on the call, all of our live virtual studio audience on Zoom, the learning that we do should be Le'ilui Nishmas, should be for the elevation of my mother's soul, Rachel Bas Leib Halevi, for all that we do. And we're going to kick off now. Right now, guys, not a moment to spare. We have got Mariv approaching us very, very soon. So here we go. We're on chapter 5 in Masechet Tamid. We're talking about a day in the Beis Hamikdash. And we're now getting to the point where people in the temple are starting to daven. But they didn't do shacharis the way that we might be familiar. So they're in the Lishkas Hagazis. They're in a particular chamber in the Beis Hamikdash, and I very unfortunately haven't sorted us out with the map, so you guys don't know where we are. But they're somewhere. You'll just have to trust me. They're in the Beis Hamikdash. So the Lishkas Hagazis. They didn't do a full davening, as we said. So let's crack on with the Mishnah Aleph. Hopefully that drilling in the background is not coming through on the microphone. Here we go. Amar lahem hamamuneh. There's this priest. There's this kohen who's overseeing everything. He's announcing everything as we go along. So Amar lahem hamamuneh. So this guy says to everybody, Baruchu bracha achas. It's time for us to start saying one of the brachas, Vehein Baruchu, and that is the bracha of Baruchu, and that accompanies the reading of the Shema. Karu aseres hadvarim. They're going to read the 10 commandments. They're going to read. So one second. Bracha achas was the bracha of Ahava Rabbah, right? We say it in Shacharis as Ahava Rabbah, which also kind of contains within it content that is appropriate for Birkat HaTorah, for making a blessing over the Torah. So they're starting off by saying Ahava Rabbah. They're saying the 10 commandments, which they only did in the Beis Hamikdash. They didn't do this outside of the Beis Hamikdash. They're saying Shema, the first paragraph. They're saying V'hayayim Shamoa and Vayomer. They're saying the 3 paragraphs of the Shema. Berchu Esa'am Shalosh Brachos. Then they are going to make 3 other blessings to the people. They're going to say Emes V'yatziv, Va'avoda, Uvirkas Kohanim. Those are the 3 brachas that they're going to be saying. They're going to say Emes V'yatziv, which we say now after the Shema. They're going to say Avoda, which is the bracha of Ritzei that we say in the Shemona Esrei. And they're going to say Birkas Kohanim. They're going to say the verses of Yevarecha Hashem Yishmerecha. Ub'Shabbos Mosifin bracha achas lemishmar hayotze. And on Shabbos, the new group of Kohanim who are coming to serve for that week in the Beis Hamikdash, they also make a special bracha for the group who are leaving the Beis Hamikdash. So as they cross over, there's a special prayer, special bracha that's said for those Kohanim. Mishnah Beis Amar Lahem. So then this Mamuneh, this appointed Kohen says, Chadashim Laktores Ba'u Va'afisu. I want all of the people who haven't yet had a chance to do the mitzvah of burning the incense to come and participate and take part in the raffle, in the lottery. Now, what's going on over here? So before they went back to the Korban Tamid, to the daily sacrifice that they would bring, there was a third lottery, there was a third raffle, and that was for someone to be able to burn the incense. This was a special privilege, and you only got it once, and that's because there was a special blessing that anyone who brought the Ketores would be blessed financially. So you'd have all these Kohanim queuing up to be able to bring the Ketores. Can everyone hear me, by the way? Yeah? Excellent. So he encourages all the people that haven't yet had the mitzvah before of bringing the Ketores to come and take part in the raffle. So, Heifisu, so they would draw the lottery, they would do the raffle. Zachamisha Zachan, whoever won, whoever was merited with this, would win. Amar Lahem, so they would say to him, Chadashim im yashanim bo'u fa'afisu. So now everybody, the old people and the new people who have had this next mitzvah and people who haven't, come back and let's do another raffle. Who is going to have the opportunity to bring up the limbs from the ramp to the Mizbeach? So according to the Tanakh, to the first position in the Mishnah, there was another lottery immediately after for a new Kohen who would take these pieces. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says there wasn't a new raffle, but instead the same Kohanim from before would finish the job. So Hamale Evarim Lakevesh, the people who had originally brought the limbs of the Korban to the ramp, Humale Osan al Gabe Amizbeach. They're the same Kohanim who are going to now take up the pieces of the animal to the Mizbeach to put on the fire. Mishnah Gimel. Mishnah Gimel. So at this point, you've got all of the Kohanim who are dressed in their Kohanic uniform, but anyone who had no jobs after all of these different raffles, after all these different lotteries, would have to now go and get changed. So the Mishnah says, Masarim lechazanim. So they, the people who had jobs, the people who didn't have jobs would now be handed over to be taken care of by the attendants. They would remove their priestly vessels. And the only thing that they would have left on are their trousers. So a Kohen wore 4 parts to their uniform, and they would take off 3 parts of this uniform and leaving them only in their trousers. So they're going to be getting back into their civvies, I think they're called, right? And so they're taking off these uniforms and they're going to put them in their cubby holes. And the Mishnah tells us, "V'chalonos hayusham." They had these compartments, or these windows, or these lockers, or these cubby holes. V'chasav aleihen tashmishei hakelim, and they were labeled for each mishmar to be able to put their particular items of clothing in. So there were 4 storage compartments per mishmar. So there were a total of 96 cubby holes in this room for all of the different Kohanim, for all of the different shifts to be able to leave these clothes in storage. So it's quite cool how even the Beis Hamikdash had a locker room for everyone to be able to get changed. Mishnah Daled. We move on to the Seder HaAvodah of the Ketores. So we're going to be talking about now the burning of the incense, and there were 3 people who would take part in this, and the incense was burnt on the inner mizbeach, so inside the kind of the heichal, inside the big building structure of the Beis Hamikdash, you had this golden altar, and that's where they would burn the incense. And if you remember, we've talked in the past about how there was a very specific recipe for making the Ketores, which was only held by one family, Beit Atinas, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so Mishizacha Baktaras, the person who's given the zechut, the merit of bringing the Ketores, Hayanotel Esakaf, he's going to take a ladleful, a spoonful of the full of Ketores. For those of you who don't know what a kaf looked like, it looked like a tarkav. What's a tarkav? Great question. So a tarkav is a particular measurement which held, as we'll see, it held 3 kav. So it was made out of gold and machazik shloshes kabim. So you've got this golden tarkav, this golden spoon ladle that's holding 3 kav of incense. And within that there was something called a bazach. A bazach is a smaller spoon inside the larger spoon. So the outer tarkav would catch anything that's spilt from the bazach, from the inner spoon, and And the reason why they had this bazach is because there was a very specific quantity of incense that had to go on the mizbeach, and so that bazach is what they were going to really need. But the tarkav, the kaf, would catch all of the rest of the incense that came out. So there was this bazach inside, male vegadush katares, and it was completely heaped full of katares, of this incense mixture. V'chisui hayalo, and it had a cover. Uchumin metuteles haya alav milmanan, and it was a kind of cloth that was placed on top of it, a decorative cloth, which would keep everything inside the spoon, inside the ladle. Mishnah, hey, mi shezacha b'machta. There was going to be a priest, a kohen, who had the right to bring the coal pan, right, into the taking coals from the outer mizbeach into the inner mizbeach. So the person who has this job, who presumably is the next kohen along, so he's going to nata machtasa kesef. He's going to take this silver coal pan. Va'ala l'rosh mizbeach. He's going to go up to the outer altar, the outer mizbeach. Ufina isa gechalim helach vehelach v'chasa. And he's going to kind of clear a space, find some good coals to be able to take. He's going to stoke the coals there, and he's going to fill up with coals. Yarad ve'eran letoch shel zahav, and then he's going to empty these coals into a coal pan made of gold. Mispaze mimena kekav kechalim, and he's going to end up spilling about a kav, a particular measurement of coals onto the floor. And these coals would just be swept into the drain system that was there on the floor there in the Beis Hamikdash, in the courtyard. And basically, that's going to be the coals that are used for the process. On Shabbos, they didn't sweep away the coals. They put a pesachter on top of the coals that spilled onto the floor, which is, I guess, a kind of big bowl. What is it? It says, it was a big vessel that would hold a letech, and that's what they would use to cover the coals on Shabbos, because they can't sweep them. And it had two chains. So it had one chain which the priest would pull the vessel filled with the ashes down the ramp, and another chain that would grasp from above, and that way the vessel doesn't roll down and spill. And it says, this psachta had three jobs. They would use it to cover these coals that fell on the floor on Shabbos, or on top of a rodent that was on the floor on Shabbos. And they would use it to drag down ashes from on top of the altar. So we've got our pan of ketores, or a ladle of ketores. We've got our pan of coals. The next thing, higiu bein ha'ulam lemizbeach. They're going to arrive between the outer altar and the ulam, and the entrance to the building of the Beis Hamikdash. Natal echad esam agrefa. Someone's going to take, I think our third kohen is going to take a shovel, a pitchfork, v'zoka bein ha'ulam v'lamizbeach, and he's going to throw it between the entrance hall and the mizbeach. And this pitchfork, when it gets thrown, it was a signal that the ketores process was about to finish. So while these people are going in to do the ketores process, someone else is throwing down this pitchfork, and that was a signal that ketores was about to finish. It's going to end the process of the korban tamid, and they have to get themselves ready for the next part of the day. And it made this almighty racket when it got dropped. Ein adam shomer kol chavero b'Yerushalayim mikol ha'magrefa. When this pitchfork was clattering about, no one was able to hear anything else. It was like a super duper alarm. There were three reasons why this signal needed to be given. Kohen sheshomer es kolah, if the Kohanim heard this sound. So the Kohanim are going to know that it's time to come in and prostrate themselves in the Beis Hamikdash, or at least I guess the Kohanim on the outside would know what's going on the inside, and the Kohanim on the inside would know that it's time for them to come and prostrate, and so he's going to run and join them. Uben Levi if a Levi heard the sound, then they would know that it's time for the Levim to start singing in the Beis Hamikdash, and so he's going to know that he's got to come and join them. And for the Rosh Ma'amad, for the head of the Ma'amad, which was the non-Kohanim groups that were serving in the Beis Hamikdash, so they would know that it's time to start positioning people in the compound of the Beis Hamikdash. It was time to start positioning people who were Tamid on the eastern gate. And it says in the notes over here on the screen that for Kohanim and Levim who are Tamid, it would be their job to make sure that they weren't getting mingled with the Kohanim and the Levim who were pure. But it also means that people who were impure and needed korbanot to be brought for them, they would now be starting to get into position, because that's the next part of the day, is to start processing all of these other korbanot that need to be brought. So that clattering was like this huge alarm siren to know what was coming for the next part of the day. And with that we say, Mazel Tov on completing chapter 5. And in the absence of any questions, we will move into chapter 6. Are we ready, guys? Fantastic. Good stuff. So chapter 6, Perek Vav. We're going back to the Kohanim. So you've got two Kohanim who have cleaned the inner Mizbeach earlier, the inner altar, and they've cleaned the menorah, but they have to go and finish the job that they were starting. Heichelu olim b'malos ha'ulam. So you've got the priest with the incense and the priest with the pan who start to go up the steps to the ulam. There were 12 steps that led to the entrance hall, and they start to go up the steps now. Meanwhile, Mi shezachu b'dishon mizbeach hapnimi, the person who was given the mitzvah, the opportunity to clean out the ashes from the inner altar, the menorah, and the person who was cleaning out the candles of the menorah, hayu makdimim lifneim, they would go ahead of these two kohanim. The one who was clearing the ashes of the inner altar, nichnas v'natal esateni v'ishtachava v'yatsa. He's going to go and he's going to take the basket where he had accumulated the ashes. He's now going to take the basket. He's going to prostrate on the floor, and then he's going to come back out of the ulam, of the hall. What's happening next is Misha Zacha B'dishin menorah, the person who was clearing the candles of the menorah earlier. Nichnas Matzah Shtei Neiros Mizrachim Dolkim. He still needs to deal with the two eastern. It says Mizrachim. Oh, I see. The most easternmost, which are on the western. Fine. So he's going to find the two remaining candles which are still burning and haven't yet been prepared for a new day. Medashan es hamizrachi umaniach es hama'arivi dolek. So he's going to first deal with the easternmost one and remove the ash from that, while leaving the left one or whatever, still lit, so that there was always one at least that was burning. Because from that is where he's going to kindle the lights for the menorah in the afternoon. If he found that it was already extinguished, then what he's going to do is he's going to clear the ashes and he's going to kindle it from the fire that was burning on the altar of the burnt offering. He takes the jug which he had placed beside the menorah from the second step that he had put it on earlier. Vishtachava, he's going to prostrate. V'yatsa, and then he's going to go out as well, because the room is going to be cleared for the for the burning of the incense. Mishnah base. Misha Zacha b'machta, the person who had the coal pan with the coals, Savar is a gechalim al gabe hamizbeach, he's going to pile up these coals onto the mizbeach, Urdadan b'shulei machta, and he's going to flatten them and he's going to distribute them on the surface of the altar with the bottom of the pan. And then he's going to prostrate and then he's going to come out. Mishnah Gimel, Misha Zacha Baktores, the person who's got the mitzvah of the of burning the incense, Hayanoteles a bazach, he's going to take the bazach, which was the inner spoon that was inside the big spoon, mitocha kaf, from within the big kaf, the nos no la'ahavo o la'krava, and he's going to give it to somebody else. There's going to be a beloved person next to him, or a friend of his, a relative who's assisting him. He's going to pass it over to him. Nispaze mimenu l'tocha. He's going to scatter. If any of it got scattered, nos no lo b'chafnav, then he's going to put it into the palms of his hand. Umelamdim asan. At this point, he's going to be explained. It's going to be taught to him by more experienced priests. Be careful with the way that you are scattering the incense, because you don't want to get burnt. So there are particular parts of the mixture that he should start taking from, so that he didn't end up getting burnt. Hitchil meradeid v'yotze. He would start to flatten the incense on top of the coals of the altar, so that everything is burning up the way that it needs to. And then, where's it gone? Hiskil meradeid v'yotze. So he's gonna flatten it, and then as the smoke starts to fill the sanctuary, he's going to come out. Lo hayah maktir. The person who was burning the incense would not burn it unless he was told to by this appointed Kohen who was telling him to do so. And im haya Kohen Gadol, and if it was the Kohen Gadol who had been chosen to bring the Ketores on that day, hamamune omer, then this appointed taskmaster would say, Ishi Kohen Gadol, my man, Kohen Gadol hakter, now is the time for you to start burning the incense. Parshu ha'am, v'hiktir v'ishtachava v'yatsa, and at that point, the priests are going to leave that area so that there's no one around in the heichal when he's doing this avodah, and then he's going to burn it up. V'ishtachava, he's going to prostrate, and then v'yatsa, and then he is going to come out of the chamber. What time are you guys starting?
6:30.
6:30.
Is that all right?
Crikey.
Sorry, I think Rabbi would teach you to come up.
Oh, amen. You're live on YouTube with 1 million people at the moment. What's he doing? Rehearsing?
Rehearsing, probably stopping.
Okay, I'm going to try and move. Guys, I'm going to try and move into the hallway. So just give me a moment. I've been muted on YouTube all of this time. I don't even know why I bother. No one's going to watch it back anyway, but never mind. So so Mazel Tov, guys, on completing Maseches Tamid. Really, really special to be able to achieve that with you. We now have 8 prakim, from what I can count, 8 prakim left of Seder Kodshim. So that's really special. We've got Masechet Midot, which is also really interesting and talks about the Beis Hamikdash. What I'm going to make sure that you've got for next week is diagrams for yourselves, so that you can see on your devices the Beis Hamikdash. That's going to be extremely helpful. I don't know why I've never thought of that before, but let me try and make sure that happens. And then we've got Kinim, which is about the pair of bird offerings, I think, if I recall. And then we're done with Seder Kodshim, and then we're going to move on. So it's exciting. 8 prakim left. Be amazing. I don't know if we can get it finished in time for Shloshim, but how cool would that be if we're going to be making a siyum for Shloshim, my brother and I, all being well, and maybe we can include a siyum for this as well. That'd be really, really special. I don't know if we will, but there we go. Mazel tov, everybody. That's all we've got time for on the recording. Not that you've been able to hear anything I've been saying anyway, but we'll see you next week.